I believe Muslims today are making the greatest financial mistake in our times. I truly believe this, that Muslims today are making the greatest financial mistake, not in math, but in the perception of accountability. We think that the mortgages that we have and the investments that we make are money decisions.
Okay.
But they're not money decisions, they're Akhirah decisions.
I don't know.
You're not signing paper. You're signing your name under Allah. And every debt that you die with follows you into your grave, not into your credit score. At that point, it doesn't even matter. So money in and of itself, the greatest fitna, it's a neutral tool. But it's not a neutral tool. It's a tool, it's a force of allegiance. Either you're enslaved to the ribawi systems or you're aligned with divine order. There's no middle ground. In the Rizq framework, we teach Rizq is not something you chase. It's something you summon through the obedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when you align yourself with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commands, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the verse, وَمَن يَتَّقِ اللَّهَ, what is taqwa? For Allah to find you where He's commanded you and not to find you where He's forbade you, meaning in simple terms, to do the do's and avoid the don'ts, which is taqwa. And this is God consciousness. And Allah ties it. He says, whoever has taqwa, Allah will provide subhanahu wa ta'ala for him from whence he doesn't expect it. Who will provide from him? It's from Allah to the individual, not from the individual. So it's not something you chase, it's something you summon through the obedience of Allah, through the purification of the soul, through putting your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I look at halal finance not as an upgrade. I see halal finance as repentance. So it's not a change of lifestyle, it's a correction of allegiance. So for me, Menzil, whom you represent, when you have organizations like that are providing riba alternatives or alternatives to riba, supporting them is not an act of favorism. It's an act of obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Jazakallah khair for that. I think...
Should we go home now?
I just might. I got it all there.
No, I told you I took a nap. So usually right after a nap, I'm very fresh.
Man,
and you said let's start with something. So
pretty much unpacking that is the whole conversation for me, because there's so many things in there that I reflect on, that I wanted to ask you about, right? And I did want to say that one of the reasons why I asked you to start us off too is because one of my fondest memories, or one of my favorite things when I first started at Manzil, was the intention renewal that we do. We now do it weekly. And that was one of the things that you kicked off, and I appreciated that a lot. And it's really set the tone for me on how to renew my intention when I'm doing anything, whether it be this conversation, whether it be work, whether it be showing up at home. So it was just more of a nostalgic moment for me as well. So I appreciate that.
No, for sure.
And then what you went into, I think there's so much to unpack there. First, it's knowing that it's a command and an act of obedience. That obtaining that knowledge, believing in it, and applying it is a huge thing in and of itself. But also, like, when you talk about it comes from Allah, right? So you're summoning it from Allah. I feel like what a lot of people miss is that in that ayah, in that translation, they think that if I do good, or if I act accordingly, if I obey Allah, then Allah will, like, then I have the power to get this risk. They take out the Allah from, like, they forget that, oh no, it still comes from Allah. Like, you could still do good and it could still not come to you in certain way, in a way, right? And so Why do you think that is? And I feel like you've spent a lot of your time now talking to people about that, like reminding them that, no, like even this light switch, I can't turn off if Allah wouldn't want me to.
Yeah, beautiful, man. I think it goes back to this paradigm or framework that the believer should shift from, because we live in times that advocate the meaningfulness and importance of results.
Yes.
So we're very results oriented, metrics. You have performance KPIs and metrics that you have to meet, and then if you meet them, certain things happen. If you don't meet them, other things that
and we want them instantly.
Happen. And we want them instantly. But that's another issue, the issue of wanting deen for the betterment of your dunya.
Okay.
You haven't yet made the shift. You haven't awakened. The reality is that, again, these are akhirah decisions. They're not money decisions. And that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, one of the questions He asks you before you move your feet is your rizq, where you attained it from, and what you spend it on. So a man doesn't seek control, he seeks responsibility. We are qawwamun because we have a responsibility, and a big part of that responsibility is our reaction and our relationship with the test of money, because Allah calls it a test that He sends us. So that shift is to understand that success is in fulfilling Allah's command in the different categories. For example, in business there are commands. So being a dhakir of Allah truly means being an obedient ta'i' of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. How are you obedient to Allah in business? By following the commands and remaining within the borders that Allah set within business. That, irrelevant of the outcome which Allah controls, sometimes that outcome could be to your favor, and other times that outcome could be to your detriment or not to your favor. So when we leave the results to Allah, we come out of our heads from anxiety of thinking, the waswas and the waswasa and the whispering of worrying about what's to come in the future, or reminiscing and feeling sad over what happened in the past. And then you anchor yourself in the now. What is Allah manifesting now in my life? He's put me in a business. What are the commands associated with that business? I can't cheat. I have to be honest. I have to be forefront. All these things. And it is a wajib and incumbent upon every Muslim to know these things if they are going through them on a day-to-day basis. But until you make the shift from dunya to akhirah, because I often say that Sahaba, they sacrifice dunya for deen.
Okay.
But we want deen in order to improve our dunya. That's the difference between us and the companions. So when you accept and submit to this paradigm and you become command-oriented, then you understand the question, who runs the successful business? The one that runs the business that made $1 million, or the one that ran the business that lost $1 million? Who ran the successful business? The typical answer is the one that made $1 million. But with this shift in paradigm or in thought, or in this structure, you understand, no. It is the one that aligns himself with the commands of business. Irrelevant. So I see the successful businessman, even the one, if he lost $1 million, but submitted and followed all the commands, that person is successful, irrelevant of the outcome, because the believer is command-oriented, not results-oriented. So it's a very important point that you bring to the forefront, and that we should be aware of, is that our intention should be, it is the why, it is the driving, Imam Ghazali calls it the driving force behind every action. Do I want, why is it that Ousama is online? Is he after fame? Is he after, what is his intention? Allah will ask, everybody is responsible in front of Allah. So then that brings you into how to work on rectifying that intention and that's a ongoing process until you meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
That's actually one of my questions. And I'll get into it without just phrasing it that way. I think, alhamdulillah, like I had an opportunity to work with you, and before then you were posting online. I believe Muslim Hub Club started around the time COVID started, and there was what were those rooms called? The audio only rooms.
Clubhouse rooms.
Yeah, Clubhouse rooms.
Yeah.
And I think that's around the time that it started. So you were posting content online and whatnot. But around that time, it sort of took off. And I knew you on a personal level, right? I knew how much you were afraid to do something with the wrong intention, right? Like I knew that you were thinking about Allah first, even then. And to then see you online as much, I'm like, not me because I knew you at a personal level, but I know for a fact people would be like, man, this guy just likes to talk. He's a pretty face. Like, what's he doing online? Like,
I don't know about pretty face.
He's doing it for the followers and the this and the that, right? That's what a lot of people think, right? A lot of people think that it's for the fame and this partnership and that money and whatever. So how did you rectify it what do you do? What's the process that you take? Because a lot of people have the capabilities, but they're like, you know what? My ego will get blown up. I don't know how to keep myself in check, or it will get to my head, or nazar, like they talk about the evil eye all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
But you may be great at something that the world does need to see that will maybe inshallah elevate them in the akhirah. So what do you do to get over that hump?
I mean, for me, I saw that, Allah clearly wanted the message to get out because He is the controller of every atom in the universe. So if He wanted a certain video of mine to go viral, He's the true one running the algorithm, behind, Meta and everything there. But so to avoid fame, or to fear being put in a position where you are famous, and to stop the da'wah for that reason is one of the tricks of Satan. So for me, I had to push forth because I knew that. But yes, it's not the answer to your question is my process is exactly that. It's a process. It's not that you rectify your intention and it's done. You make a universal intention, but every day is a battle with that intention. And obviously, the more followers, the more fame, the more you're stopped on the street. Everyone wants to take your selfie. Everybody wants your number. Everybody wants to connect with you. You're sitting with the biggest, names on the block, within the Islamic world. And obviously, I have a nafs. So, and that nafs, the purification of that nafs is an ongoing process that I go through. So it's not something that I figured out and it's done. I have some wins, I have some losses. I'm constantly working on myself. I don't know which act Allah is gonna accept. So I do my best in all. I put my trust in Allah. The evil eye, there are certain du'as and adhkar and practices. I asked Dr. Yasir Qadi to give me some advice about fame, and subhanallah, and he said, the more famous you get, the longer your sujood should become.
SubhanAllah.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
Yeah, that was his advice. That was his advice to me after sushi. So it must have been some really good sushi.
That's some good advice,
it was very humbling sitting with him because he's mashallah, he's an intellectual, and I was intimidated, so I didn't want to say much because I was worried I was going to sound stupid. So I remained quiet for most of it, but I had the chance to gift him my book, and subhanallah, he gave me his books, and I promised to read through them. I think they're must reads. That's something people should look at on the side, but it's a side topic. But back to, I don't know what got us into this in the first place. But
the sujood, the longer the sujood, and more followers, the longer the sujood.
But it's very important to listen to the advice. You should see everyone as an opportunity to learn from. There shouldn't ever be that arrogance that you've reached the top. I am not the example that anybody should hold up. I have my own shortcomings. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the example. And the way he was with money is that, his one hand didn't know what the other gave. He wouldn't sleep before everything was given away. He was a giver. He was an upper hand. He would borrow money to give some of the Sahaba, but he had full yaqeen. The thing is, we should be, ashamed. Like, people of Gaza have more certainty than us with our big, and they don't have bank accounts. And they have
Wow,
more
net worth,
without
nothing.
bank accounts. They have more conviction than our 850 credit scores. My friend is telling me it cost him $50 for bread and $50 for sugar, and the tea was free. But it's insane. So they have built this yaqeen. It's not Netanyahu that is blocking food from coming in. It is Allah's command that is blocking, because Allah has a hikmah. We see this with the inner eye, but we act on the outer through Sharia. We stand up for truth. We speak up against it. We do our part. We protest whatever it is that we need to do. But our inside is that it is Allah that is blocking for some hikmah that He has.
Yeah.
And this is that, making that connection is key.
So that yaqeen, man, I think that yaqeen is it's so important. And you talked about we're in this world of the KPIs and the results, and I mentioned that we want them right away. In the age of social media, in the age of AI, all that stuff, we want that. We want that success, and it's getting younger and younger where people are starting this. And I don't think that often enough young Muslims are prepared with the right amount of taqwa to enter that world, to enter, I trust Allah, and He's watching at all times. He has a plan for me. I don't think they're prepared enough, and they enter this world, and too much it becomes about the results, too quickly, too early,
Yeah, we're too busy, building our retirement instead of preparing for our akhirah.
Yeah.
The thing is, imagine this scenario where you pass away right now, and you have a ribawi mortgage, and your family is continuing to make your ribawi interest-bearing mortgage payments
other option.
while you're paying the cost underground. That's insanity, that people are preparing for their retirement before they prepare for their death. So again, it goes back to it, being a shift in perspective, understanding what Allah is getting at first and foremost, but also looking at it just from a financial perspective, because that's, ultimately maybe what our focus is on here today. Why is it that you're making the decision when you get asked the question that mortgage you're saying is halal, but I end up paying more? So it's not really halal, or I come up, or I go fatwa shopping for anyone to give me any fatwa. Why? Because my bottom line is my pocket. It still isn't God's command. So you're talking about, how do we make that shift? How do we increase the iman so we get to that level of taqwa, so that Allah's command becomes
That's the first thing we look at.
Yes. Through implementation, that is the whole journey, is to it's a journey of increasing your iman. The Prophet ﷺ said, it wears out like clothes wear out. Like you have to take care of it. If it's not increasing, it doesn't stay like at the same level. It's automatically increasing.
It's leaking from somewhere.
Yeah. So you have to constantly make an effort through setting a modicum of Qur'an, of adhkar, of making sure your 5 prayers are performed, and you take care of God's commands, and Allah takes care of you.
So I don't know. I think because ultimately, right? It's even in the financial world, right? People talk about short term versus long term, and this view is always so short term. It's like, no, you know what? They go to the mortgage calculator. They go, this is more expensive. And it's just like automatically short term. I'm going to be paying more out of pocket, but like you said, you're going to pay for it somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so like that shift, that mindset shift from short term to long term, is something that a lot of people struggle with. And it's their fault, but it's also not their fault, because that's just how they've built the West, and how they've built the world, and wanting you to want more and more and more and more.